Hi again. Great to have you joining with me as we take this devotional pathway to the cross of Christ. You know, Easter is all about the death and the resurrection of Jesus. And sometimes we can forget that there was a whole lead up to that moment. Things that were happening in the life of Jesus that, in a sense, were part of that journey as well, as Jesus renounces the praise of others, as Jesus takes faith and religion and turns it into something that's a blessing and a benefit to the world, as Jesus makes our lives better. The cross is all about expanding the kingdom and making more people enjoy the life that only Christ can give. And I think it's so much a blessing to us when we also can take that crossroad, when we can follow the life of Jesus in a way that the world doesn't go. But as we take up that cross, we recognize that it's a huge blessing to us. When Jesus says to his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. The people who are wanting to go after Jesus are not looking for worse. They're looking for better. And they've seen better in the life of Jesus. And in fact, that's the whole reason that they're following him, is because his life is a bigger blessing and has more power and godliness in it than they've ever seen before. And so they want to follow him. Well, Jesus says, then I invite you to do what I do. Take up your cross. Take up my cross. He says, whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And so that's the incredible promise, is that yes, we're letting go, but we're actually gaining more. When we surrender, when we take the way of the cross, when we crucify our lives, we actually end up with a resurrected life that's far better, far more blessed, and far more soul nurturing than that selfish life, this self-centered lives that we can normally live. In fact, the Apostle Paul, he says, I've been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. If you're looking for the secret of Paul's success, and truly I mean that in a sense of what God would say has been successful, it's actually because he said, I did embrace the cross. I did give up my life. I did let go of my own religion, my own righteousness, my own works, my own way. I let go of my life. And I've been so blessed because of it. And I hope that you'll see that as we take this journey to the cross with Jesus, that you'll see that every step of the way where he surrenders, that he gains far, far more. So today I want to talk about another thing that happened. And the gospel stories don't always put these events in order. And so we're not really sure what order some of these things happened in. But I've been focusing on that the triumph entry we talked about first week. And then we talked about the cleansing of the temple. Now, I want to talk about a moment that could have happened in between those, but could have happened afterwards. But we'll just read it out here as it comes from Mark chapter 11. It's the story of the cursing of the fig tree, and there's something in there that I think is really important for us. It says in Mark chapter 11, he says, verse 20, they passed by in the morning, and they saw the fig tree withered away from its roots. And Peter remembered, and he said to him, Rabbi, look, the fig tree that you cursed is withered. And Jesus answered them, have faith in God. Truly, I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and be thrown into the sea, but does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours. And whenever you stand praying, forgive. And if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. And I think that in this moment that Jesus is talking about a massive difference in what we call faith. That the faith that Peter has and the other disciples is so kind of stuck. It's so, in a way, polluted. And he's no longer getting, Peter and the other disciples are no longer getting the things out of their genuine faith in God that they could. Jesus is saying, if you had this kind of purity of heart, purity of belief, you would be able to say to a mountain, go and jump in the lake, because anything could happen. And what's happening, though, is that you have this really strong certainty that every time you ask for God for something in prayer, it's going to happen. And that's exactly what Jesus is. But there's something about Jesus's heart, that what Jesus has gone through on his journey to the cross, or it's represented for us, about surrendering in his life so that his heart remained pure. His heart remained able to believe. I don't know about you, but I'll tell you what, some of the painful ways about life, some of the things that have happened to me, some of the disappointments I've experienced and the offenses I've had, they corrupt the purity of my belief center, my heart. Jesus challenges us to have a faith that is not full of doubt. How do you get there? He talks about how that we oftentimes are praying and we're not even believing. We're ritualizing it. But the problem is that our hearts just can't go deeper. They just can't grab hold of more. How did they get that way? We pray sometimes without even believing in God. I hear people pray, and I hear myself pray sometimes, and I think, do I really believe that? Do I really believe what I'm just asking for right now? And the last thing Jesus said is we oftentimes are praying without even forgiving. And that idea of maybe being disconnected from the offenses of our lives, of those who hurt us and those who we've hurt, that is actually interfering with our hearts deeply. Disappointment, doubt, and offense poison the heart so we can't believe. There's this story one time, I'll just share it briefly, but Jesus is up on the Mount Transfiguration. He comes down. He's up there with Peter, James, and John. Then they're met by Moses and Elijah. Wow. Then they come down the mountain. As they come down the mountain, they find this conversation, argument going on. In Mark chapter 9, it says, when they came to the disciples, verse 14, they saw a great crowd around them and scribes arguing with him. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, Jesus, were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. But Jesus asked them, what are you arguing about with them? And then somebody comes out and says, oh, teacher, I brought my boy to your disciples because he's got this demon and it throws him down and tries to kill him, but your disciples just couldn't do anything. And in verse 19, Jesus says something I think is really crucial for the cross life. He says, oh, faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me. And Jesus does what's necessary. But notice what the disciples doing. They're arguing. They're having mental debates and trying to be right and trying to prove points and trying to, debate their rightness. And they've lost the most important part, the faith. They don't have faith for this boy. And they're thinking about techniques now and arguing about how, not what does God say and what is God doing. They've lost the capacity to believe. And that's why I think that when Jesus talks to them later, they say to him, why couldn't we cast the demon out? And Jesus says, this kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer. Most translations say fasting as well. And I think this is so important. Where's your discipleship life gone? Where is your surrender to Jesus? Have you become too wounded and pained and disillusioned? And when those things happened, did you resolve them with God? Sometimes we think about the cross, taking up the cross as giving up good things. But maybe the cross is also desperately about us giving up bad things, to letting the poison drain out of our hearts. Do you find that sometimes you pray, but you don't believe? Do you have sometimes deep doubts and questions? Have you ever wondered to yourself, how did I become so faithless? How did I stop believing? Answering that question might provoke your need to embrace the cross. To actually say, okay, Jesus, I need to release some stuff. I need to release baggage, offenses. Jesus said at the end of that talk about the fig tree, why he saw that miracle and others don't, is that he said, when you stand praying, you need to clean your heart out. You need to forgive people. You need to reconcile the pain. The cross is oftentimes there for people who have seen too much and been through too many disappointments. So taking up the cross can mean this, that we deny our offenses, that we deny our experiences, that we deny our guilt and false guilt, that we deny our arguments for how we're right, that we deny our bitter pain and we release those. My friends, if you're like me, you've been disappointed, hurt, those things, they build up. And the cross means that we get a moment where we can say, they're over, they're finished. I release them and I don't hold them against anyone, and I allow God to be God, and I allow myself to just go back to being a child who believes and not a person who's full of answers. Let's believe again. And maybe you want to just really pray this prayer with me. Father, I renounce my past experiences. I renounce all of this religious knowledge that I have. I renounce my anger and my fear and my disappointment. And I forgive those who've offended me. I forgive those that have really wronged me. And I also just release all of the disappointment and the pain of the unanswered prayers, of the things that were hurtful and painful in my life. And I pray, Father, as I let go of this terrible pain in my life, I pray that you heal me. Lord, I'm not going to hold on to these things, this self-protecting my heart. I'm not going to do that work. I pray you heal my heart. As I let go now, I pray, Jesus, that you would release me so that I can have genuine, from the heart, faith again. I ask it in your name. Amen. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.